Hello. I know students.
My voice is not much audible.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. You are audible, but before you talk, no, that's time much not much audible voice. Is that break now?
Screen like करो तो.
Audience, please gather.
Ma'am, it
Please
will
come
take.
inside.
Ma'am, it will take 5 minute time because current is not available for 5 minutes.
Okay, okay, fine.
Please all gather. Tea break is over. Now we are going to start session 2. I request everyone to come and take the seat.
Live started.
Once again, I request everyone to come and take your seats. We are going to start session 2 soon.
Then also taking for a phone everything for anxiety or not have the time to be free. You are now sharing if you feel like something. Every function I struggle like investing in me. I feel like frustrated. I never chance to sit there. For relaxation, I do not have relaxation. Some people are blessed to be there. Some people are blessed to stand here. You ask them, they will say, okay, this is not my thing. Like, some club also there is church and go there. Because it's only like, I just said, Then moderator madam get ready for the session.
I request everyone to take your seats. Come inside the hall. Please take your seats. Volunteers, those who are standing outside, please send everyone inside. Yes. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. We now start with session 2, which emphasizes the importance of statistical method and data analysis in producing quality and ethical research. It is my honor to invite our speaker, Dr. E. Devakirubai, Dean of the Sacred Heart Nursing College, Madurai. Her topic on mastering qualitative methods, a breakthrough in the nursing epoch. The session will be moderated by Dr. Professor Anuradha Panda Madam, Dean Som Nursing College 2. She completed PhD from Himalayan University. Total 20 years of experience in that 13 years as a principal at LGM College of Nursing, 2 years at City University, New York, United States of America. Holds position as President Somi Society of Midwives, India Odisha chapter. Published paper in Scopus Index and other journals. And participate as speaker at national and international conference. May I request Professor Anuradha Panda ma'am, please moderate the session. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am. Okay, thank you. ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କଡଲେସ୍ ଦଉଛି ଆପଣ ସେଇଠି ବସିଦେବେ ନାଇଁ ମୁଁ ଏଇଠି କହିଦେବି ପଳେଇବି ତାପରେ ହେଲା ସେଠି ଗୋଟେ କଡଲେସ୍ ରଖିଦେବି ନା ସେଇଠି ଗୋଟେ କଡଲେସ୍ ରଖିବ ଆଜ୍ଞା Yes. I request everyone to be seated, please, because our speaker is waiting to deliver her talk. Shall we start?
Yes, ma'am, we can start.
We can start. Well, very good afternoon once again to all of you. My heartfelt thanks to Dean, Dream School of Nursing, Madam Pratima Prakasham, and all the organizing committee members for offering this wonderful opportunity to chair the session on a very important topic, that's qualitative research. Well, we very often talk about quantitative research and very often go with that. But let me tell you, at the present context, it's very important to understand about qualitative research, which is emerging as one of the powerful approach for a deeper understanding on meanings, values, and the experience of patient care. And to discuss in detail about this qualitative research, what are the types and how to go with that, what are the analytical process, we have with us one of the very eminent speaker, Madam Dr. E. Debakirubai. Time will be insufficient to narrate about Madam's experience and expertise in the field of nursing and practice, but let me just introduce few of the important aspects of Madam. She has obtained her BEc and Master's degree from College of Nursing, Christian Medical College, Vellore, and PhD from Indian Nursing Council in collaboration with WHO. She has additional degrees like in sociology, counseling psychology, and palliative care. Madam is a senior nursing academician, researcher, and administrative with over 28 years of experience in the field of nursing. Currently, she is working as Dean cum Professor and Head of the Department in Medical Surgical Nursing at Sacred Heart Nursing College, Madurai, Tamil Nadu. She is also a recognized PhD guide for undergraduate and postgraduate thesis. She has been the university examiner, question paper setter, and the members of Institution Review Board. She has published many journals, many of her articles in national and international journals. Madam has been awarded with many awards during her BSc, like Johnson and Johnson SIDEX Award, Norris Prize in Community Health Nursing, first rank holder in for the course study, and gold medal for securing best outgoing student. She also has awarded with many awards for the during her post graduation, like Violet Jayachandran Prize, Kasturi Sundar Prize,
Jiva, Samuel Price, and so many. Really, as I mentioned, time will be really insufficient to narrate Madam's expertise and experience in the field of nursing and research. So, Madam is here to explain in detail about what qualitative research means and how it is important in the field of nursing. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words. And I hope that I'm audible.
I think he's sitting in the first row.
Am I audible?
Yes, madam, you are audible, ma'am. You are audible, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm trying to share my
Yeah.
screen.
They are sitting with Edwin, sir.
I just wanted to know like whether it is like visible.
They are going to Puri. They will be having, no, no. Only we need, no, no, we need to send them to Puri. No, no, they are not eating here. Okay. Some good of things in the corner. Madam, you can share from your side.
Yeah. No, my slides are visible.
No, ma'am, no, ma'am.
No what?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Oh, 1 minute. It's loading. It's loading.
It's loading, madam. Has started screen sharing. Wait, wait.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am. Not visible, ma'am.
Oh, just a minute.
Yeah.
If Madam is finding difficulty in sharing the slides, sir, you could share.
Yes, ma'am. We can share from
Yes, yes.
if madam gives permission. Sir, madam को मालूम है, we can share from our side. The problem is that. Folders they can. They can. That's them too. Madam, we are sharing from our side also. Folders they can. That's session 2. Window 2019. Yeah. Ma'am, screen is visible to you, ma'am?
Yeah, it's visible. I don't know. I don't know why I'm not able to share. Okay, can I start?
Yeah, yeah. Please.
Hey, can you just put
Yeah,
me as a co-host so I'll be able to control the slides?
ma'am, I can move the slides.
Yeah?
I can move your slides.
Okay. A very good afternoon to one and all. At the outset, I thank my Lord for every great opportunity that He has kept waiting for me. And this would be my first slide, in any of my presentation. Okay. And I also, thank the Dean, Dr. Pratima, and my dear student, Dr. Satish, for giving me this wonderful opportunity and the management of Dreams University. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. The capacity to learn is a gift, and the ability to learn is a skill, and the willingness to learn is a choice. And I think, your willingness to come to this conference and to learn about is a choice. And I hope that you enjoy it. Okay, next slide. And at the end of the session, qualitative, I hope and pray that your faces will be lit like this, just like this flower, beautiful flower. Next slide. Yeah, and a very good afternoon. Okay, appreciate all the good in your life. I know that it's a long time to learn about qualitative, but I'll try my level best to make it interesting. Next slide. Yeah, next slide.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could you please be little louder because the audience, I think, last, is it audible what Madam is saying? Is it audible what Madam is discussing? Little more, Madam, voice, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now is it audible?
Yes, 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 yes. Now it's out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Can you just put me as a co-host, okay, so that I can control the slides?
Already you are in co-host, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I, okay, fine. Next slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Next slide.
Friends and listen. Audience, please
Yeah.
be silent. Students, please make silence.
Can I have the next slide?
Yeah, ma'am. Sure.
Satish, the slides are not moving, Satish.
Ma'am, slides are coming. Ma'am, please share from your side also. We will stop.
Yeah, can I share from mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that would be better,
Better, ma'am.
right? Yeah.
Ma'am, can you keep in full view, ma'am? Full slide view.
Yeah, no. Is it visible now?
Yeah, slide is visible, madam, but full view is not there, ma'am.
Yeah. Just a minute.
Madam, slide view, madam, please, ma'am, slide view.
No. I'm just trying to do that. I don't know why it is not. I've done it many times, but
Madam, please press F5. F5.
yeah, I know that. I'm doing that, but somewhere I'm stuck. Satish, just a minute. Yeah.
Madam, can you close that in the top? There is something showing yellow color. One drive, one drive. One drive.
Satish, just give me 2 minutes time. Huh? I'll just correct it. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, please. Sorry. Yeah. Just a minute.
No issue. आप मैनेज कर लो ना अभी 109% भी आप बात कर नो नो उनको बोल आप कॉल पे ठीक है क्या कॉल पे थे उनके साथ नो ये दिन बना इनपुट ये जो दीप का वाला जो
எனக்கு ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேரிங் நான் பண்ணேன் எனக்கு சரியா வரல can you just help me out இந்த இது கரெக்ட் பண்ண இதான் அவங்க கரெக்ட் and that's my presentation அதுல கொடுத்துட்டு நானு சரி That's all, right? அவ்வளவுதானே? லாஸ்ட் டைம் ஒரு பண்ணும்போது வரல எனக்கு. இப்ப இது இது இவ்வளவு இதுவாயிருங்க. ஏன்னா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பண்ணும்போது இது வரவே இல்லை சார்.
Yeah, but now it's coming.
தேங்க்யூ தேங்க்யூ.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Now we can see the. Yeah, we can see the slide now.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. Okay, some glitch in the okay. And I hope if anybody is sleeping, I just want you all to wake up, okay, and just feel kind of excited about the presentation, right? Because it's going to be new. Okay, yeah. And I hope to pray, that's called as a praying mantis. And I pray that you will pay attention to me, right? And one of the respect that you give to any people is, the active listening. And I pray that you attempt active listening. And I just wanted to ask this question to the audience, right? Are you listening? Okay. So keep both your ears open, minds open. Okay. And this is just like the journey that I'm going to take you through is just like putting a puzzle together, right? And we are going to talk about mastering qualitative research methods, but that's a huge term, mastering. It's not going to happen within that 1 hour time. Okay. But definitely that will be a eye opener for each one of you. Okay, consider this for a moment. You're looking at a passing clouds, okay, and which you can't quantitatively describe. So there are certain events which can be studied only qualitatively, okay. And the second thing you're looking at is okay, second thing that you're looking at is a flower path, okay, which can be studied both quantitatively and qualitatively. Okay. And look at this tree. This can be, counted, but sometimes what happens is some phenomena can be studied quantitatively, but does not hold any significance, which means, you have to go through qualitative. Okay. Just, I know that, many of you would identify this person who's Albert Einstein, right? Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Okay, that's a powerful quote which he has given by counting something, but that holds true for qualitative research. And just look at this picture. This is how, we know someone's life. We think we know everything, but that's not true. And that's where, qualitative research can open windows into other people's, through the experience in their world. And it can help us to gain unique thoughts. It can be anything to understand others. At the same time, through understanding others, we'll be able to understand us also a little better. And this is what I know about qualitative research. Okay, probably I have, like few papers, few theses I've conducted both as mixed method, but I think, like it is huge, right? Stories give life to data, and data gives authority to stories, right? That's a very powerful thing, where verbatims are, such huge thing when we go into other people's life. And my roadmap today, I'm going to talk about the definition, overview of paradigms, characteristics of qualitative research, the purposes, advantages, disadvantages, and the sampling and the traditions. And that's how we are going to reach the goal today, right? And again, that's a quote. I'm just skipping that. First is a definition. Okay, if you see here, it is an investigation of a phenomena typically in an in-depth, holistic, through the collection of narrative materials and using flexible research design. Whatever has to be highlighted, okay, to describe or to define a qualitative research, I have put it in red. Okay, and it has got distinct methodological traditions, which is very, very different from the quantitative traditions. And this is what I want you to remember when you want to define qualitative, subjective. I'm not looking at somebody as objective, measurable. It all is collected in terms of narrative, holistic. Okay, it is just like putting a puzzle together. and in an in-depth matter, and it is a flexible research design. It is not a rigid design, but rather it is a flexible research design. And I wanted to look at this picture, because I'm not, like in front of you. Okay. I just wanted to ask you, what are you looking at? Some people will be looking at an young lady. Some others would be looking at an old lady. Some others, one group would be looking at both. Okay. Both the young as well as the old lady. Okay. This is very important. And again, another picture. If I put this picture, some of you will say, ma'am, that's a duck. And some would say, ma'am, that's a rabbit. Okay. Some people will say it is both. Okay. So, why this picture is very important is there is something called a term called paradigm. The way you see something, your point of view, your frame of reference or belief, and that we call it as paradigm, a world view. So, it is a set of beliefs or practices shared by communities of researchers which regulate inquiry within a discipline. So, people, who are doing your PhD and the masters just know, a research paradigm differs for the quantitative research and the qualitative research. And the base of a paradigm is epistemology, ontology, methodology, and axiology. Just look at that. Okay. If you see here, all put together, I call that as a paradigm. And it is a research paradigm is like an iceberg. We see only the methods outside. All the other things, like say the ontology, the epistemology, like the all the other things are hidden. But that's what forms the base of a research, be it a quantitative research or a qualitative research. And we have two. I'm just like highlighting only on the two things. We have the positivist paradigm and interpretive paradigm. The positivist paradigm is for the quantitative research, and interpretive paradigm is for the qualitative. In ontology, we say in positivist, there is only one singular reality. But whereas, like just like the picture that we saw, okay, in a qualitative research, it is multiple realities. And in epistemology, which is the relationship between the researcher and that being researched, there is a distance and impartiality in the positivist, that is a quantitative. But when it comes to qualitative, there is a closeness and subjective. And axiology, the role of values, there is so much of checks are made so that you remain unbiased. But whereas in qualitative there is a lot of chance to be biased. And in terms of the methodology, it's a formal style, and in interpretive it's an informal style. Okay, so I just want you to remember, positivist is with quantitative research and interpretive paradigm is for the qualitative. Now, here we are moving on to the characteristics, which is the base. First is naturalist and contextualization, primacy of data, descriptive in nature, emphasizes holistic perspective, concerned with process, immersion in the setting, the emic perspective, inductive, meaning and interpretive, multi-method, thick description, and researcher as instrument. Okay. Naturalistic, data is gathered in the natural setting, the real world situations, so that the phenomena unfolds naturally. Okay. The second is context is very, very important. I want you to, go through the picture there. There is a fish pot which is seen both by the cat as well as the baby. The context. If the cat sees the fish, it says that it is a food for me, but for the baby, it is a enjoyment. That's the same thing with red. Red means lot of things in different circumstances. So now the qualitative research is context dependent. Actions should be understood within the settings. The actions and settings cannot be separated, and circumstances are very important. Primacy of data, the theoretical framework. In quantitative research we start with the theory and we go about testing a theory. But here there is no theoretical framework, but there is only a philosophical underpinnings. So the theoretical framework is predetermined, but it derives directly from the data. That's why the data is something very, very huge importance in qualitative research. It is descriptive in nature because we use quotations and verbatums. Holistic perspective, it is like putting a puzzle together. As you get the information or the verbatums from the patients, You put them together, and at last, you kind of form a figure where you take into consideration the social, cultural, historical, and individual factors rather than isolating one from the other. And next is, am I audible? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Please continue.
Oh, yeah, yeah, please, because it's online. You can just tell me if something goes wrong, right? Yeah, okay. And it is concerned with process. In quantitative research, we are kind of concerned about the outcomes, what the results are. But here, a lot of importance is given to the process, how the meaning is derived, and very important is it is inductive in nature, where you start with specific observations, you build the pattern, you test the hypothesis, you come out with the hypothesis, and then you come out with the theory. Okay, so it is completely from specific to general. Okay, the inductive in nature. Immersion in the settings. Researchers immerse themselves in the natural setting. I just wanted to quote my example. I did my PhD in death and dying, where I have to qualitatively interview patients. On day one, day two, I'll be all right. And once when I get immersed in the natural setting, you know you feel one among them. But that is very, very important when you want to explore something. And the next is the emit perspective, which we call it as the insider's view. Here, the focus is on the people involved in the research and their perception. It is not the researcher, rather, it is the participant, what the participant feels, what is the participant's perception, what do they mean. Okay, so the emit perspective and meaning and interpretive. Okay, I've just put a beautiful picture there where, five blind people come together and they describe an elephant. Okay, participants' perspectives are very important. I can't go and say that you are wrong. Okay, so here the meaning is derived from the participants' perspective, how they make sense of lives, how they view experiences. Okay, so it is meaning and interpretive. Quick description. When I wanted to describe something, okay, it could be just a verbatim, it could be an interview, but I don't just describe the verbatim alone. I look into the surroundings. So it's a rich, detailed, and nuanced account of a phenomena. I remember a patient, I interviewed, you know, and in my thesis, I have written how the patient's face lit up brightly, along with the verbatim. So it is a kind of you bring in all your observations along with your verbatins. So it is more of showing rather than telling. Okay, so thick description, and it is always multi-method. You might say it is interview, but at the same time you also observe what is happening to the sample or a participant, and what is happening in the surroundings, the visual or the audio materials. Okay, so it is always multi method to ensure the rich insights. And the design is always an emergent design. In a quantitative research, what we do is, before like data collection, everything is prefixed. But that doesn't happen with qualitative. It is flexible. It allows changes both in the direction as well as in the methodology or the methods that we follow as we proceed forward. And the last is, researcher is the instrument. It is not the interview schedule or the observation, the tool that we prepare. It is the researcher is the instrument, because primary instrument, we might have a very short tool, but the data is mediated through the instrument called the researcher than the questionnaires or the inventories, because the researcher is the one, who will be asking the questions, and from the answers that is given by the participant, the researcher will reframe questions, not like the quantitative research where it is a selected list. And these are the characteristics. Coming down to the dimensions of qualitative methods, I understand the context, I understand the people, and I also understand the interactions. These are the three important dimensions of qualitative methods. Purposes, yes, if I wanted to better understand a phenomena and a new perspective, there is a new phenomena, like say we had COVID-19. Initially, it would have been case studies where they would have studied qualitatively. So, for better understanding a phenomena and collect and explore in-depth information, because in quantitative we cannot get an in-depth information because everything is reduced to numbers. It, rich descriptions explore the issues to difficult of access groups. Like recently, like a year back, we did a study with a qualitative study with transgenders because it's an issue difficult to access group, but we did it qualitatively and explore culturally defined experiences, track unique or unexpected events, and complement quantitative data in the research process. Like say, for example, I wanted to, like kind of triangulate my quantitative data. I take up qualitative, which is called as a mixed method. Appropriateness, when variables cannot be quantified, I go for qualitative. Which can be best understood in the natural setting, I go for qualitative. When variables are studied over time, go for qualitative. Roles, process, culture, and when the paramount objective is understanding, there is no other choice, you go for qualitative. What to observe or study in qualitative? We observe the behaviors or practices, episodes, common events, encounters when groups of people interact, the roles, and the interactions. The qualification of meaning the investigator, the researcher plays a huge role, right? It is. I just wanted to quote one thing. It is not just interviewing, collecting the verbatims and putting it in quotations. That's not qualitative research. You need to have the knowledge and skills about the methodology, setting, and nature. You must be familiar with your own biases. Say, for example, I did with death and dying, and we did with transgenders. I had my own bias, my own understanding, my own assumptions, judgments. I have to like kind of have all this and bracket it, okay? And you have to be empathetic, intelligent, energetic, interest. You have to have the interest, and listening skills is the most important thing in a qualitative research. Must be open to embrace multiple realities. Sometimes they might even challenge your own assumption or your own understanding. But I can't go and argue saying that you're wrong. You have to be open to embrace multiple realities, and you must be willing to produce detailed, comprehensive, sometimes lengthy reports. Okay, so these are the qualifications. So the writing skill is very, very important. Coming to the steps in quantitative and qualitative, quantitative is a linear process. You can't move back and forth. It is linear, one after the other. But rather, if you look at the qualitative, it is cyclical, which we call it as it is iterative in nature, where we go back and forth in the qualitative research process. We go back and forth. Okay, if you just look at this diagram, initially, we start with planning the study where I identify the problem, do a literature review, design and all that. And then the second phase, I develop the data collection strategies. It is given a lot of importance, right? What type of data to gather and decide from where to get the data. Third, you gather and analyze the data simultaneously. Once when you are coming out with themes and your interpretations, you need to go back again to developing data collections, because what you exactly want you haven't achieved. So you go back and see your data collection strategies, and that's why we say it is a flexible design which is not applicable with the quantitative research. And the last is we disseminate the findings. These are the differences in terms of quantitative versus qualitative paradigm. This is a positivist, and here it is naturalist or a interpreters. Hard science because we reduce everything into numbers. Soft science because we take everything into account in a qualitative. Reality is multiple, a single in quantitative. We say either they are stressed out or not stressed out, but here the realities are multiple. Objective in nature because it is measurable. So qualitative, it is subjective. Reality is objective. Here it is socially constructed. That is, context is very, very important. Context free, and here it is context interrelated. Purpose, generalizability. In quantitative, I take the findings from the sample and go back to the population. And here, I do everything in terms of the context. Sometimes I can't generalize. Transferability is a better term in terms of qualitative. Here, I do it with for to predict and control a particular phenomena or some variable. And here, my qualitative is interpretation. And here it is a causal explanation. What causes something? And here it is the understanding the actor's perspective. In terms of approach, here it is a reductionist, and here I'm taking into consideration of all the factors, holistic. We start with the theory in quantitative, but whereas here it is a strong philosophical base. Deductive reasoning, whereas here it is an intentive reasoning. We test the theory, and here I'm trying to develop a theory. The design is a rigid design, whereas here it is an emergent and a flexible design. Precise measurement of variables, whereas here it is a rich description. I use formal instruments. I can't change anything in the instrument, but here researcher is the instrument. Experimentation, and here it is naturalist and outcome oriented, and here it is process oriented. Large sample size in quantitative research, whereas in qualitative it is small sample size. And here it is the numbers, but here it is a words. Statistical analysis, but here I make individual interpretations. Coming on to the researcher role, in quantitative, I'm kind of detached from the samples, but whereas in qualitative, it is a personal involvement. Okay, and here it is an objective portrayal, but whereas here it is an empathic understanding. Disadvantages? Yes, there are, subjectivity leads to procedural problems, because, from I can't exactly replicate a study, right? And researcher bias is inbuilt because, it is always in-depth interview. Sometimes it runs into 2 or 3 days or 4 days, okay? And the replicability is very difficult. In-depth comprehensive approach to data gathering, it limits the scope, limited generalizability, as I told already, very labor intensive and expensive. I remember doing my, thesis, the PhD thesis, which was very, 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 very expensive in terms of time, the resources, and the energy. So it's very labor intensive, and it is highly dependent on the researcher knowledge and skill. And it is not understood well by classical researchers. When I say classical researchers, is the quantitative researchers. That's for your eyes. Okay. This is the national flower of Japan. Okay. Fine. I hope that we are moving forward. I just completed an overview of the qualitative research. Okay. And I hope, the following slides would be on the sampling. We are moving on to the sampling techniques and qualitative research. What qualitative researchers worry about? They worry about, I want to see the world through my respondents, not my own eyes. How do the respondents or the samples see the world? I want to describe the context in a lot of detail. I want to show how social change has occurred. And, I wanted to be kind of flexible and, so the assumptions, social actors are not predictable like objects, human beings, you can't predict. So random events are irrelevant. Okay, in an experimental study we talk a lot about the probability sampling, but when it comes to qualitative research, I'm studying the experiences, or I'm trying to understand a human being, where probability sampling becomes very expensive as well as inefficient. So therefore the best is the non-probability sampling. And individuals are not always the unit of analysis. It could be the incidents or the experiences. Aim is not generalizing the findings. Aim is to get it's not a representative sample, but rather I want an information rich sample. I just wanted you to keep this word in mind. Information rich sample. And remember, the sampling is also emergent in nature. You can't prefix saying, I will choose these many samples. You can't do that. Who is a good sample? A good informant is a good sample who has experience in that particular phenomena, who's able to articulate and talk in length willingly. You just ask a question and they just come out and pour out the information. They are reflective. They are able to, look back into the experience. They are able to, recollect, and then they are willing to share. And they are also knowledgeable about that particular. That makes a good sample. So the eligibility is experience of the phenomena under study, and it is an emergent design including the sample. The sample size is relatively small. How do you decide the sample size? We have a lot of calculations that we make for determining the sample size and quantitative, but here it is a term called as data saturation. That's a beautiful picture, which I really loved at putting here. Sampling to a point at which no new information is obtained, and we call that as redundancy. Imagine, I've interviewed 8 samples. I'm going to the ninth sample, I'm going to the 10th sample. The ninth and 10th sample are telling me the same thing what the first 7 have told or 8 have told. That is what I call it as saturation. Every pore is saturated and there is no new information coming. And that is when I stop the next interview. That tells me, what is the right sample size. Okay. So here, saturation, keep it in mind. And above all, persistence and patience is something very, very important. Factors affecting sample size. The scope of research question, the broader the scope, I need to go for more samples. Data quality, if it is going to be a very good informant, okay, less sample size. Sensitive topics, I need to go for large sample size. Shadowed data, participant, is sharing not only his experience or her experience, but is willing to share someone else's experience, okay. Then I need a small sample size. And, like if it is going to be a good skill experience, okay, so then less sample size because the researcher will be able to tap the experience through the right questions. Okay. And these are the sampling techniques. We have the convenience sampling, which we also put it as volunteer sampling, snowball sampling, called as chain sampling, and purposeful sampling strategies. Convenience, someone who has experienced and someone who you are able to reach out as a researcher, or sometimes the sample comes forward to tell that a sensitive topic that I have this experience and I am willing to share, that I call it as volunteer. Snowball, you come across with one right sample, and that right sample, that first sample will give the details of the some other person, it goes as a chain. And purposeful, you handpick. I just love this diagram for a convenience sampling, and this is for the snowball sampling, or which we call it as a chain. And just look at this picture, that's for the volunteer sampling, okay, for sensitive data. That's a chain sampling, and that is for the purposive sampling. And this is what is classified. Sampling for representativeness or comparative values, we use a lot of strategies, like say maximum variation sampling. Okay, lot of new terminologies. Okay, it is not equivalent to a quantitative methodology. Homogeneous sampling, typical case sampling, stratified purposive sampling, extreme case sampling, intensity sampling, and reputational case sampling. I'll try my level best. Maximum variation, I try and select samples with diverse backgrounds. Like say, for example, I choose male versus females when I'm interviewing, literates versus illiterates, rich versus poor. So I kind of choose from, purposefully select people or settings with variation in the dimensions of interest so that I get a very rich information, not just from one group of people, but I try to understand the phenomena from a varied perspectives. Homogeneous, it is a simple kind of people coming together for a more focused inquiry. We use this for focus group discussions. Typical case sampling, I choose case where it is a typical or average or normal for a particular phenomena. We do this a lot when I'm trying to understand a phenomena. Stratified, I have different strata. I've just given an example. Pain levels above average, average or below average. And I try to choose from these 3 strata to better understand the phenomena. And we have the extreme case sampling where we have on a continuum the extremes, like say successful and the unsuccessful. I also have the notable failures. That's what I'm trying to say. I choose, like on both extremes, outlier sampling, it is also called, so that, it gives me more information about a particular phenomena. I have the intensity sampling, which I call it as where a person who's willing to, like provide in-depth information. Okay, that I call it as an intensity sampling. And the last is the reputation case sampling, where based on someone's recommendation of an expert, I go choose this sample. Many times we do this in ethnography, or when we go into the community setting, they say, why don't you go and kind of interview this person? This person will be able to give. So that I call it as a reputational case sampling. And the next is a sampling special or unique cases, where we have three things: criterion sampling, revelatory case sampling, and sampling of politically important cases. And we have sampling sequentially, where I gradually I kind of do it, which I call it as opportunistic sampling and sampling confirming or disconfirming cases. Coming on to the criterion sampling, selection of cases that meet a predetermined criteria. Okay, that I call it, as the word itself suggests. And then like I have the second one as a revelatory case sampling, which it involves identifying and gaining access to a single case representing a phenomena. Okay, it could be anything which was previously not accessible. It could be a groundbreaking leadership style, or it could be something extremely successful people, that I call it as revelatory case sampling. Politically important cases. Okay. Search for politically sensitive cases or sites for analysis. And this is again very, very important when we do kind of ethnographic studies. Opportunistic sampling, which I call it as emergent, which is sequential. We keep doing it. I do come to the seventh sample and I wanted to say, what new in the next sample, and I keep doing it. Okay. It is flexible and emergent. Confirming and disconfirming cases, I do at the end. Once, I kind of do the data collection and analysis. Confirming cases, I take one more case to confirm my concepts, or I take one more case with either to disconfirm, or, whether there is any kind of interpretations that is going to challenge my own concepts that I have derived. Now, we also have something called as a theoretical sampling, which is very, 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 very specific to grounded theory. Here, it is a process of data collection for generating theory, whereby the researcher jointly collects, codes, and analyzes his or her data and decides what to collect next and where to find them in order to develop his or his theory. I just wanted to give an example where, there was a study where mothering twins, they wanted to, find out about mothering twins. So the researcher thought, they will choose at the end of, say, 1 year, mothers with 1 year twins. And when they went to the mothers, felt that 6 month period from 0 to 6 months is a blur. They were not able to recollect. So what they did again, okay, they went back, they, kind of redefined the sampling strategies, and they said, we will collect the data from mothers who have a 6 old twin babies. That's how, it is kind of emergent, and that is what I call it as a theoretical sampling based on the concepts and the concepts that is emerging. Okay, you can just see here, you analyze data, you do it, and then you go back again to do the data collection, right? Yeah, I've just given an example. Memoing is something very, very important when you're doing the sampling. You just need to put down your ideas and reminders regarding the sampling, which will be very, very helpful when you are analyzing the data. That's the tulip flowers, and I've completed with sampling, right? We are moving on to the research traditions. Here, we can call it as research designs, but the more acceptable term is we call it as qualitative research traditions, which are very, very unique to qualitative research. Okay, if you see here, the research traditions are basically, derived from these disciplines: anthropology, philosophy, psychology, sociology, sociolinguistics, history. Okay, so it has got a deep philosophical base, the research traditions. If you see here, we have ethnography. I've just listed some 10. We have ethnography, which is a holistic view of a culture. Phenomenology, just remember, it is lived experiences. Grounded theory, I'm trying to see the social structural process within a social setting. Historical analysis, it's, the name itself suggests, right? Description and interpretation of historical events. Case studies, in-depth investigations of a single entity. The mind comes to me is, the COVID-19. Definitely, even one thing case provided a lot of information. Discourse analysis is a forms and rules of conversation. Wherever there is a culture, there is, forms and rules of conversation. When I'm going to study that in detail, I call that as discourse analysis. I have narrative analysis where story becomes the object of inquiry. Descriptive qualitative studies, when any of the, when my study doesn't fit into any of the, research traditions, I go with descriptive qualitative. Critical theory, critic of society. If I'm going to study some problem in the society, like say for example, poverty or unemployment, that I call it as a critical theory. Same critical theory, when it is focusing on gender discrimination and domination, say for example, it could be a female infanticide, then I call it as feminist research, right? So understanding human experience, go with phenomenology. Social process, go with grounded theory. Cultural, go with ethnography. Unique stories, go with case study method. A little bit about the phenomenology. The word comes from Greek words, and if you see here, it is the study of a phenomena, and Edmund Husserl is called as the father of phenomenology. Beautiful, because here I'm exploring and understanding individuals lived experience. I want you to take that term and the meaning they assign to those experiences perceived by consciousness. The way I see my experience, the way I understand my experience, okay, that is very, very important. And the nature and meaning of human experience as it is lived, perceived, and experienced. So I'm trying to find the essence of a phenomena. Whenever I think of this essence, it's just like squeezing a fruit to extract the juice, and that is what exactly we do in a phenomenology. These are the proponents of phenomenology, Husserl and Heger. Key characteristics: I'm studying the lived experience, the first hand perspective from the sample and not from anybody else. Intentionality. My consciousness is directed towards that particular phenomena. Okay, intentionally, wantedly, and bracketing. As a researcher, I will have my own understanding about the phenomena. It could be about death and dying. It could be about a premarital sex or any matter for that. But I need to, as a researcher, bracket all my thoughts. Okay, so that I call it as epoch. Descriptive emphasize. It is, describing rather than explaining. Okay. And search for the essence. That's what I was trying to say. It is not the individual stories, but all individual shared stories put together and to find out what is the shared feature, what is the common theme, what is the pattern that is existing. Holistic approach. And the last is sometimes we do use examples. Okay, so here the philosophical underpinnings, we move away little from the scientism for a broader search for wisdom. Philosophy without presupposition, because I transcend all my judgments, past knowledge. Bracketing we talked about, and we talked about intentionality, and we also, the last one is refusal of the subject-object dichotomy. So these are the questions. What is a lived experience? What is it like to experience this phenomena? I've just given certain examples. Like, you can ask, what is it like to be bored? What is it like to be, to experience a heart transplant? What is it like to experience sitting in a conference like this? Okay, phenomenology. So here, when we are talking about the essence, that is the key of the phenomenology. When we are talking about that, if consciousness is the site, okay, the solution is to speak as a description of the essence. I just love the picture that I put there. Essential is the necessary feature of a phenomenology. And if you see here, I might collect, like from say, so many individuals, but phenomenological process is what is the shared understanding. That is the essence of a phenomena, and that is what I'm trying to do it in a phenomenology. And that's what I said. It is not just collection of verbatims and putting it in quotes and writing. It is not qualitative research. Each one has its own methodology. And this is what we are trying to do in a phenomenology. So essence, how do I come to an essence? These are the three approaches. I need to bracket, as a researcher, I need to bracket my own understanding about the phenomena. And I need to give a detailed description of a phenomenon's meaning and essence and free imaginative variation. Whatever I'm writing, whenever I think about the phenomena, that should come to my mind. That is what I call it as a free imaginative variation. When there is a phenomena, say for example, COVID-19, I'm doing a phenomenology, whatever I come out, when I think about that, that should come to my mind and nothing else. That is what I call it as, imaginative variation. And that is what forms the essence. And if you see here, another term that I wanted to introduce is the being in the world. Very important, very, very specific terminologies. That is physical, people's physical ties to their world. The way they see, they think, they hear, they feel, they are conscious through their bodies. And that is why, four aspects of lived experiences: lived space or spatiality, lived body or corporeality, lived time or temporality, lived human relations or intentionality, relationality. All this, you need to keep in mind when phenomenology is taken into consideration. If you see the types, we have two types, which is descriptive phenomenology and interpretive. Okay, in terms of descriptive, I'm trying to achieve a transcendental subjectivity, which means the researcher sees the phenomena newly. I've bracketed all my, my own information, and I'm looking at new phenomena, and that's what I call it as transcendental subjectivity. The researcher stands apart and not allow his or her subjectivity to form descriptions. So bracketing and reduction are very, very important. So these are the steps. I bracket my own ideas, beliefs, and all that. I go with an open mind. That's what I call it as intuiting, and then collect information, analyze, and I describe the phenomena. This is a phenomenological study of nurses' experience in caring for COVID-19 patients. Second is the interpretive phenomenology, which we call it as hermeneutic. Okay, so here this is proposed by Heidegger. The critical question is what is being. The difference between the descriptive phenomenology and here is it is not just describing it is not just describing, but we go a step ahead, interpreting and understanding. Okay, there, we don't try to interpret and understand, but here the added thing is interpreting and understanding. So hermeneutics is a basic characteristics. What is hermeneutics? It is the art and philosophy of interpreting the meaning of an object or meaning of an experience. So goal is to enter another's world, to discover the practical wisdom, possibilities, and understandings found there. And if you see here, I've just put one picture here. You kind of, go round and, try to understand. And then, finally you come, you understand, and you try to interpret, add meaning to it. Okay, so that is the difference between the hermeneutic and the descriptive phenomenology. Okay, probably the slides are there and you can get it. One important difference is in descriptive, we bracket our ideas, but whereas in interpretive, we don't bracket our ideas. Sampling, usually 15 or lesser. Criterion sampling, we also go with maximum variation sampling. And we go with in-depth interviews, cross-sectional, typically moderate time of data collection. Okay, this we have already discussed. So the reader should come away from the phenomenology with the feeling, I understand better what it is like for someone to experience that. Very powerful. Kind of, you become empathetic, you put them yourself into their shoes, you try to understand, and you say, I understand better what it is like for someone to experience. When you read a phenomenological study, it should give you this experience, right? That's a white peacock, which we find it in Madurai, the place where I'm staying. Okay, just to cool your eyes. We are moving on to ethnography. Ethnography, ethno is people and graphy is writing. So it is writing about people. It is nothing but cultural. When I wanted to study qualitatively, think of ethnography. We have basic types. One is macro, if it is broad defined cultures like an Afghan village culture. Micro, when it is narrowly defined, how nurses communicate with children in an emergency department. Key terms in ethnography, any perspective, this we already saw, insider's view, the local language, the local expression, the local food, or the way they dress up, everything. Ethic is outsider's view, interpretation of the experiences of that culture, the language used by the researcher, and both are equally important. And the tacit knowledge, that's a beautiful term in ethnography. The information about the culture that is deeply embedded in cultural experiences. They don't talk about it, They don't write about it, but it is there, that information. We have seen this, we experience this whenever we go into a family, someone's family, all those habits or all those traditions that they follow, they don't talk about, but it is there within them. They are not even consciously aware of it. That I call it as tacit knowledge. And here, it is embodied and experiential. They experience that, the people in that particular culture. It is difficult to articulate, context specific. It is beyond explicit data. That is very important. And in ethnography, the researcher should try to elicit this tacit knowledge. Okay, it is not, it is an insider's perspective. And what are we looking at? We are looking at the cultural behaviors, the cultural artifacts, what people make and use, and the cultural speech, what people say. And in sampling, it is a big net approach. We start with a big net approach. We mingle with, it is mostly participant observation. So we mingle with as many members as culture, like, say usually 25 to 50 key informants. We select the key informants and cultural consultants, and then, we go inside. We talk about whom to sample, what to sample. Is it the event? Is it the artifacts? A lot of things in this. Method, of course, observation plays a very important role along with artifacts and, of course, in-depth interviews. Cultural system is the unit of data collection, and usually it is very long. Gaining entry into the field is a very important thing, and determining a role, whether you're going to be a participant observer or a non-participant observer. Okay, I think tomorrow they will be talking to you about that. Learn how to participate, to reactivity, reflexivity, candor, because you're going to meet a lot of people within the culture. If you see here, these are the types. Autoethnography, you as a researcher might be a part of a culture. When you are studying that, I call that as an autoethnographic. So if you see here, an autoethnographic reflection on the nature of nursing in the UK during COVID-19 pandemic. Ethno-nursing, analysis of the local or indigenous people's viewpoints, beliefs, and practices about nursing care behavior. Third, institutional ethnography, to study the organization of professional services examined from the perspective of clients or frontline workers. And here, the beautiful example, institutional ethnography of hemodialysis care from the perspectives of health team. Okay. Those are lavender flowers, right? Beautiful. We are moving on to the grounded theory, which is a bit difficult one. Proponents are the Glaser and Strauss. Theory, okay, when grounded theory is the development of a theory, okay, so theory that is developed inductively from the data. And here we seek to understand actions by focusing on the main concern or problem. There is a social process, there is some problem or a concern that the individual's behavior is trying to solve. And that is what I'm trying to study. So here, the manner in which people resolve this main concern, I call it as core variable. And one type of core variable is these terms I have highlighted in red, keep it in mind. And it is a systematic set of techniques and procedures that enable researchers to identify concepts, build theory from the qualitative data. If I wanted to develop a theory about a phenomena, go with grounded theory. Okay. So it is not that, I take off the shelf, from the shelf, a theory. It is not that. It is generated or grounded. And that is why it is called as grounded theory. The theory is grounded in data from the participants. Okay. Grounded theory. So the goal of GT is to discover the main concept and the basic social process that explains how people continually resolve it. And remember, it is a reverse fashion. That steps in the research process is a reverse fashion. If you see here, traditional, we start with reading the literature. But here, we start with collecting data, analyzing, and keep the reading literature to a later one. So it is a reverse fashion from traditional research. Coming on to the characteristics, the data coding, collection, analysis, coding and analysis is a simultaneous process in GT. Okay, just keep it. I collect, I code, analyze at the same time. Second, concepts keep, coming out from the analysis. Okay, developed from the data and not from the preconceived theory. Concepts are very important. Memo taking is a very important process in grounded theory. If you hear, memos play a very important role. It is an intermediate process when I'm trying to analyze from codes to concepts. So it is like writing the analytic notes. Why did I code it this way? Why did I come out with a category this way? And that helps to find the connection between the or the theoretical connection between the theories, the categories. Theoretical sampling, I'm not going into the depth because I've already explained through the example of, mothering twins. Employment of constant comparative method. I keep comparing as I, do the codes, I compare it with the data. And again, I come with the categories, I compare it with the codes. It's a constant, comparative method. Only then I can say the conceptualization is realistic and it is holistic. And delay of the related, review of literature, I told you already, because we wanted to go with a fresh idea or a clean mind. I don't know anything about that, so and I wanted to learn in depth. And the last is it is iterative and recursive in nature. It is cyclical, and also I go back and forth in the steps. And that is why I call it as recursive. These are the characteristic features. That's a beautiful picture. I just loved it when I put it on the slide. As such, GT focuses on emergence, the concept emerging from the data, grounded in the data. That is, a research should start from a position where the researcher knows nothing about what they are studying, so that all concepts truly emerge from the data. And that is why I said it is very difficult. Doing a qualitative research is difficult. You need a lot of patience to listen, a lot of patience to write, and whatnot. Okay. Now, there are three different types of, grounded theory. One, I call it as classic grounded theory, but given by Glasser. And, the second one, the second one, I call it as the Straussian grounded theory, and the last is the constructivist. Just keep it in mind. Okay, I'm not going into the depth, but I just wanted you to keep it in mind and just see this classic grounded theory. When you want theory to purely emerge from minimal researcher influence. Second, Straussian, when you prefer a very systematic procedure. Last is constructivist, where you work along with the participant, and equally there is a role for the researcher. Okay, that's and usually 20 to 30 people, but I won't say it depends till data saturation, theoretical sampling, very, very classical for grounded theory. This is the same steps that what I have designed, what I have discussed in terms of theoretical sampling, I have just put there. Okay. Yeah. Method, in-depth interviews, observation, journals and documents, individuals, and length, okay, typically moderate. And you need a lot of time. To me, if you ask, encouraging candor, all these are the same things for each of the traditions. And these are a lot of, like I just love that example, a grounded theory approach to develop a theory to explain women's response to chemotherapy induced premature menopause within the context of breast cancer. And, a grounded theory approach to develop an explanatory theory for moral distress and adaptation levels of people with post-injury permanent disability. Okay, a lot of examples are there where I'm come out with the theory where, how people solve a problem, the core variable and basic social process. So beginning qualitative researcher should be aware that GT, grounded theory, is a lengthier and more complex process than a phenomenological. That's why I gave a little more importance to the phenomenological study. If you haven't started one, you can start with the phenomenology and then go ahead. Important to consider that there are constraints in the amount of time you can devote to a study. That's a maple tree. Okay. Yeah. So I've just come to the end of my presentation. I know that the time is not that sufficient, but tip one, I just want you to remember this. Investigation of a phenomena, in-depth, holistic, rich narrative materials, and a flexible design. Tip two, it belongs to interpretivism paradigm. Sorry, there is a spelling error. Tip three, features are it is naturalistic, primacy of data is important, descriptive, holistic, concerned with process, immersion and setting is very important, emic perspective, inductive, multi-method, thick description, and researcher is the main instrument. Dimensions, I try to understand the context, people, and interactions. It is cyclical, that is iterative. Remember, you are a co-creator of data. Okay, you are the instrument. Talk less and listen more, especially in qualitative research. Choose an information-rich sample. Data saturation decides the sample size. We don't have any kind of calculations. Phenomenology is lived experience. Ethnography, we study the culture. Grounded theory is creation of a theory. Types of phenomenology, descriptive and interpretive. Types of ethnography, we have ethno-nursing, autoethnography, and institutional ethnography. Types of grounded theory, we have classical, Straussian, and constructivist. And I haven't gone into the data collection methods and analysis because you're doing a session tomorrow. So I don't want to overlap. Okay. And I just would like to finish with this. Integrity is a way of living, whether it is our personal life or our professional life, and it is an all time business. I do the right thing, even no one is watching me. And especially when I wanted to give a quality research, be it a quantitative or a qualitative researcher, the researcher integrity and researcher credibility. Credibility, how you enhance your knowledge and skill in conducting a research will determine the quality research. And I truly believe knowing what's right doesn't mean much unless you do what is right. And I hope and pray that at the end of this presentation, that some of you would be, like motivated to take up a qualitative research. You need to, refer more and, you need to get into the field. You can't sit back and say, I will do a qualitative research because the true experience comes from conducting a qualitative research, being in the field, talking with peer, talking with the samples, audio recording the samples, transcribing the, verbatums, like analysis, writing up. That is where you gain the true experience. I can talk so much, but unless you go into the field and do it, it is not. So, put it into practice. Start with a small level and, go ahead. Right. And thanks for your patience listening. If there are any questions, you can check with me. Probably I'll try to understand. I always consider, even I'm not, people tell me that I'm an expert, but I'm also in the process of learning a qualitative research. Okay. And I wanted to thank, all three teachers who have, contributed so much into my qualitative knowledge. Dr. Vinita, Dr. Leah McAdam, and Dr. Angela. Okay, they are the ones who gave me this thrust to qualitative research. Okay, thank you one and all. And if there are any questions,
Thank
I'll
you,
be
ma'am.
happy
Thank
to.
you so much for a very elaborative yet well explanatory session on qualitative research. So, hope it's understood to some extent to all. Madam has explained very well. It's like regarding what is qualitative research and what are the characteristics, purposes, and most importantly, she has explained very well the types of qualitative research which we could undertake, like what are the phenomenological research, grounded theory, and so many. She has explained very well. Now the session is open for discussion. Any doubts, students? Anything you need to be clarified? No, I think they are fully understood what the qualitative research is. Because as it's lunch time, I can
Ma'am,
understand.
we got two doubts from the audience, ma'am.
So nice, so nice. Please raise your hand and you are most welcome for the doubts. And it will be definitely clear.
Ma'am, we got two questions from audience, ma'am.
Yes, sure.
Shall I ask?
Yes,
Sure, sure.
Okay,
yes,
ma'am.
Sati.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, one person is asking that what are the biggest challenges in applying a qualitative method to interdisciplinary field like public health or environmental studies?
Yeah. See, to me, like I would say, whether it is, environmental health or, public health, qualitative research in itself is a challenge because, getting into the field itself is sometimes very difficult, huge. Okay. I'll share my experience. Okay. When I wanted to do death and dying, nobody was willing to give me a permission. I had to travel quite a bit, where you probably say I had to travel around 500 kilometers away to do my research because people don't understand the beauty of qualitative research. Okay, so the challenge would be gaining entry into the field itself is a challenge, and the second challenge is the time. It takes immense time. You need a lot of patience. Persistence is the key because when I want to come out with a qualitative data, I can't just say I will finish it in 1 week or say 2 or 3 weeks time and I'll get back. That will not work out. Okay, so whether it is an environmental, health, or whether it is a public health, qualitative research design in itself, when we wanted to implement, it is going to be a big challenge because it is resource intensive, it is time intensive, and it is labor intensive. Gaining entry is going to be difficult, getting permission is going to be difficult, and the persistence and patience is going to be difficult. Okay, but do it. Okay,
Very
life is
very true.
challenging. Always life is coming is with challenges, and we need to face it when we want to come out with solutions. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, last question from the audience. Can you tell about triangulation?
Oh yeah, oh my God, that's a huge subject. I
Yeah.
did put that because that was kind of out of my thing. I felt triangulation is, like say for example, I get a finding, I'm doing a kind of, I'll give my example. I kind of interviewed a patient on death, and I was counseling a patient. That is one of my things qualitatively, like kind of counseling a death and dying patient. This gentleman was talking to me. I was interviewing him as he was, narrating his life and what he wanted to overcome and all that. I was taking down whatever he was saying. I called that as interview notes. I was audio taping, but you know, it'll just never go out of my mind. I was observing him. He was a dark complexion person. When I went in the beginning, his face was dark, completely, like dark. Okay, I'm not talking about the complexion. He had so much burden in his heart. He was in his deathbed. As he was talking and he was kind of letting out all his feelings, I could just feel, the blood flowing into his face. He was dark complexion, suddenly becoming bright. So the data that I collected from the interview, okay, matched with my observation. Okay, so triangulation is a kind of a validating procedure. Okay, the data I collect from, it could be the results or whatever it might be. I'm kind of validating through multi methods, either through another researcher, through another method of data collection. This is, my interview notes were validated by my observation findings. It is through a different methods that I have used. So there are different types of terminology, like say data triangulation, investigator triangulation. There are many different kinds of, in itself is a different huge topic. But basically remember, I am validating an information from multi methods. That is what I call it as triangulation. I hope I have answered, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for your nice presentation, madam. And it was really informative. And I think now many of our participants will prefer for undergoing this qualitative research. Definitely, it's required in nursing perspective as we go deeper understanding of the values and deeper understanding of what is happening instead of counts numbers. It's important to know why and how it is happening. So that's what qualitative research is very very essential, and we must undergo with the qualitative research. Thank you so much, madam.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, we will now take break for lunch. Lunch will be served 45 minutes. And I kindly request all participants to be seated back by 2:30.
Okay, felicitation.
2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Just we want to give felicitation to madam. Um, 2 minutes, please be seated.
Space heater. Please, space heater. Close the door. Ma'am,
Okay.
we all are running.
Yeah, yeah.
Please, 2 minutes, wait. Not much. I don't know. I don't know. What happened?
Sir, student went for
They went, go, ma, go, go.
food, having food.
No, no sugar. Food is important than all.
Anyway, students who can
When
send.
madam completed how much? Madam, sit down.
You go, man. But like the lodge. এই পশ্চাৎপদ দেখাবে answer is 1 hour actually. 45 minutes yeah, we are ಮಾತಾಡಿ schedule ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ it is okay because now that madam also not ready. So if already
We will now take a break for lunch. Lunch break will be 1 hour. Please gather by 3 p.m.